We continue now at the top of Daf 65b Daf in Meseches Nazir. This is Nazir Daf 65b. Amar Rava, the Gemara says, Rava says, Badak upana. Let's say he inspects the area and he clears it of a mace. He finds a corpse and he clears it away. And then he does that again, a second mace, and he clears that away as well. Badak ve'eshkach, and then he checks again. Now he finds a third mace. So at this point in time, had he found all three of them, it would have been considered a cemetery, but now he's already removed two of them. And so the halacha is lo hai mefani legabe hanach trei, but lo hani trei legabe haichad. We don't say that this one has to be cleared away in the face of the other two, and the other two don't have to be cleared away in the face of the other one. Rashi over here explains, Amar Rava badak upana badak umatza mesu peineu mekomo keretnan not lo vest fuzaso. He finds a mace and he moves it from the area, he takes it and the surrounding earth, and then badak upana nami l'sheni, finds a second corpse and does the same thing. Keretnan, as we learned in the Mishnah, matza shnayim not lo vest fuzaso, and even if he finds two, he can take them and move them and their surrounding earth. Ulavasar hachi badak ve'eshkach shematza shlishi. Now he finds a third one, lo mefani legabe hanach kamoi, so he doesn't move that in regards to the other ones, and we also don't move the other two. Rashi here explains the idea is that we do say it's considered a shchunas kvaris, it's considered a cemetery, so the ones that he already moved are moved, but that third one, it stays in its place. You don't move it, just like in a situation of a cemetery, you do not move the bodies. And the Gemara continues, Ika Diamri, there are those who have another version of Rava's halacha. Amar Rava says as follows, Kevan shenitno reshus lafanos, once there's already been permission to move these bodies, mefan lahon, you can move all of them, meaning you're even allowed to move the third one. And the Gemara asks on that, but why not say that it has the status of a cemetery and you're not allowed to move? And the Gemara answers to that, Amar Reish Lakish says, Ila mitzvah v'tiaru Eretz Yisrael. We find the pretext in order to purify the land of Israel. And the Gemara continues at the two dots, Badak me'esrim amma v'lo matzah mai. What happens if he checks from 20 amos and he doesn't find any more? Amar Rav Menashe bar Yirmiyah Amar Rav. Rav Menashe bar Yirmiyah says that Rav says, Shechunas kvaras, it has the status of a Shechunas kvaras. My time, and what's the reason? Amar Reish Lakish again says, Ilam mitzo, they find the pretext, V'tiaru es Eretz Yisrael, and we make Eretz Yisrael pure. And there are those who take out Reish Lakish's line over here, because Reish Lakish is talking about a leniency, but really the ruling that we just had is that it is a Shchunas Kvaris, that's actually a stringency. And the Rosh explains, Harei zeh Shchunas Kvaris, this is considered a Shchunas Kvaris, Upshita lekevan de Gimmelheim, the idea is here, since we did find three corpses, even though you found nothing else, Mechazkinan le Shchunas Kvaris, still we render it, and we say that it's considered a Shchunas Kvaris, a cemetery, Afal pi shelo matza yoser, even though there was nothing more found. And again, as we mentioned, the Rosh says, V'lo garsinan hachamai time on Reish Lakish ila mitzvah v'chulu. According to the Rosh, you take out the gears of Reish Lakish, because here it's not a leniency that we have over here, it is a stringency that it is a shchunas kvaris. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Kol Safik Negoim, anytime you have a situation where a doubt arises regarding tzaras, B'tchila tarat shelo nizkak l'tumah. So if that doubt arises in the beginning, so then we say that it's considered pure, we are lenient, as long as you haven't reached the time when it's nizkak l'tumah, meaning as long as he's not a confirmed mitzorah. But misha nizkak l'tumah, once you have a situation of a confirmed mitzorah, so then sveiko tameh, so then in situations of doubt, we are machmir, and we say tameh. And Tosas explain, Kol Safik Negoim B'tchila ad shelo nizkak l'tumah tar, any situations of doubt, so if it's before the person is a confirmed mitzorah, we are lenient and we say tar, du'ukmei acheskase, meaning to say, we follow the presumption, his presumptive status, that he is tar. Of Meseches Negoim Mefarish, and Meseches Negoim, it explains as follows, Keitzad Hauso Shnaim Shabo Eitzel Kohen Zeb Baharis Kagris, Uvazeb Baharis Kasel. Let's say you have two people, two individuals, they go before a Kohen, one of them, his Baharis, his tzaras is the size of a gris, the other one a sela, L'sof Shavua, Bazek Kasela, Uvazek Kasela. Then after a week, one is a sela, one is a sela, meaning they're both the size of a sela. Ve'eno Yodea Ezamehen Pasatar, and then you have a situation where you actually forgot, you don't know which one was which, that's the suffix. So in that case, no one is a confirmed mitzorah yet, so we rule tahar. But mishanizkak l'tama, once there's a confirmed mitzorah, hasam mefarish, there we explain as follows, Keitzad haso, shnayim bo etzel kohen, you have two people again before a kohen, bozek kaselo v'zek a gris, one, it's the size of a sela, the other a gris, l'sov shavua, then a week goes by, bozek kaselo, this one's a sela v'od, and a little more than a sela, uvazek kaselo v'od, the other one the same thing, tamein, so then they're considered considered confirmed mitzora and tameh. L'sof bazel v'zekasela. Then again they look, and it's a sela ve'eni yodea ezamei amkeya. We don't know which one the color had weakened. So then shneim tameim. Now you're dealing with confirmed mitzoras. So we say they are both considered tameh, and that's the explanation of what the Mishnah means. And the Gemara says minohan imili. So from where do we know this? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says the Rav says Amar Kra comes from the pasuk. The pasuk says letaharo o letamo, to make him pure or to make him impure. Hoel upasach bo akasa betahara tchila. Since the pasuk starts with the word tahara, we understand that we should be lenient. But the Gemara says if that's the case, yachiv so afilu misha nizkak latuma nami sveikotar. So even after you're dealing with confirmed mitzoras, we should be lenient because the word litaro is first in the pasuk. In a situation of doubt, we should be lenient. So this cannot be the source, and the Gemara here does not actually bring a source, but rather the Gemara says ella rather ki itzmar de Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. When was Rav Yehuda's statement that he said from Rav? When was that said? It was in another context. It wasn't in our Mishnah. Ahoy itmar. It's actually on the following halacha in Baheres Kidmo l'Seir Love, when it says, let's say the Baheres, which is the Negat Saras, if that comes before the white hair, so the halacha is tameh, that it's tameh v'im Seir Lovan kodem leBaheres. But if the white hair comes first, so then tahar, then it's going to be pure. Safik, and if you have a situation of doubt, tameh, it's going to be tameh. Rabbi Yoshua Amar Keha, and Rabbi Yoshua says Keha. Question is, what does keha mean? It generally means that the color becomes weaker, but what does that mean? My keha, what does Rabbi Yeshua mean by keha? Amar Rav Yehuda says keha vitar. When he says keha, he means to say that it is rendered pure. We rule that it is pure. V'dil makeya vitame. How do you know he means that? Maybe the word keha really means that it's impure. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. So Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, and this is the context of Rav Yehuda Amar Rav's statement. Amar Krotz, because the pasuk says lataro o latamo hawelu pasach ba'akas b'tahara tchila. It says lataro latamo. The first thing the pasuk talks about is tahara, and therefore we say over here that it is tahor. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, b'shiva derachim, in 7 ways, bodkin es hazav, we inspect the zav, ad shalo nizkak laziva. That's before we have a situation where he's already rendered a zav that he has to have 7 days of purification. The case over here by a zav is as follows. When a zav sees 1 emission, so at that point in time he's tameh, but it's just for a day. If he sees 2 emissions, so then he has to go through 7 clean days for purification. And if he sees a 3rd one, so then not only does he need the 7 clean days, he also needs to bring a carbon. And so the halacha is that in a situation where he's already seen 2 emissions, so in that case already in the 3rd one, it doesn't matter how the 3rd one occurs. It doesn't matter if it's from an external factor or if it's actual ziva. It makes no difference. It's considered a 3rd flow, and he has to bring a carbon. But for the first 2, for the 2nd one, let's say, so in that case, if it comes from an external factor, if something else causes it, it's not just a natural flow of ziva, so then we say it actually doesn't count as a ziva. It doesn't have that status. And so that's the idea over here, ad shalo nizkak laziva, before he's had 2 flows. Anytime before that, you can do a bedika, you can check, and you can see maybe it happened because of an external factor. As Rashi over here says, B'zayin derachim bodkim hazav ad shalo nizkak latuma ad shalo ra beis re'iyos. We're talking before he sees 2 flows. If you're holding before he sees 2 flows, so then you do these bedikas, and the Mishnah says the following are the bedika. Number 1, b'ma'echol of a mishta. You check in terms of maybe he ate a lot, or maybe he drank a lot, you ask him, and that could bring a person to ziva, and again, that wouldn't count in terms of actually seeing a flow, in terms of the halachas of ziva. And also we check him b'masa, let's say he was carrying a lot, or uvekfitza, let's say he was jumping, he was moving in a way that might have caused it, uvecholi, or he was ill, uvemara, or in appearance, and Rashi over here says uvemara shara, a shade. Let's say he saw a demon, something that frightened him, that might have caused it, over here, or maybe with thoughts, he had thoughts that brought him to the ziva. So all of those situations, again, in those situations, that would be a bedika, and we would rule that it's not considered a ziva. However, mishanizkak laziva, once we have a situation where he already has had 2 flows, he already has to wait the 7 days of purification, so at that point in time, ein bodkin oso, we don't do any bedika over there, we don't ask him these questions, it doesn't make a difference. If he sees a 3rd flow, that counts as a 3rd flow. Onso usveiko v'shechvas azaro tameim. In those situations, let's say something happens ba'ones, meaning it's forced upon him, so to speak, it's happening from an external factor, or let's say you have a situation of suffik, or let's say shechvas zera, let's say he has a situation of semen. In all of those cases, tameim, we say that they are tamei, they have the status of a ziva. And Rashi over here explains, first Rashi says, sharaglayim ledover, there's a raglayim ledover, now sharaglayim ledover, and our Mishnah comes right after, onso usveiko v'shechvas zaro tameim, sharaglayim ledover, it appears, and as Rashi over here says, sharaglayim ledover shaloba machmas onso, it seems that it really didn't come come because of an ones, elamachma ziva mamish. This is an actual real ziva. It's a real flow. Onso, usfeiko, v'shich vazaro, hakol tamei machma ziva. All of these situations, they're going to be considered like ziva. The efshar lahem below tzechzuche ziva. It has to be that they contain ziva. And the Mishnah continues, Hamakes chaveru, if somebody strikes his friend, v'yamdu lamisa, and they evaluate that the strike was enough that it's going to cause this individual to die. V'hakil, but then he gets better, mimashaya, gets better from what he was, it looks like he might survive. La'achar mikan hichbid v'meis, but then he gets worse, and he actually does die. So is this considered to be like murder? Is the person who struck him, is he chayiv? And so the Mishnah says chayiv, he is chayiv. Rav Nechemya says no, pater, he's pater, again, sharaglaim l'davar, because the circumstances indicate that this didn't really happen because of the makkah, because of the fact that he struck him. And the Gemara says, Menohani mili, so from where do we know these words? And Rashi says, Menohani mili de mishinizgak l'tum aziva shuvein bodkino, so that once he's already seen twice, so then at that point in time there is no further bedika. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Nosson says, Amar Kratz, because the pasuk says, V'hazov es zovo l're'iyah shlishis iskish l'nekeva. We learn from the pasuk of Hazov es zovo that in terms of the third seeing of ziva, he's compared to a female. Rashi over here says, Amar Rabbi Nosson, Amar Krav, Hazov es zovo lazachar v'lanekeva. It says the words lazachar v'lanekeva after V'hazov es zovo. Achar shamar akos of shtei zivos, zav zovo, meaning after it says zav zovo, which is two flows, hikash akos of zachar l'nekeva. We're comparing a male to a female, l're'iyah shlishas, in terms of the third flow. Lomar lach, and to tell you as follows. Ma nekeva de lo ksiv bami b'sara v'afilo me'on sahav meya. By a female, we don't make a distinction if it happens because of an external factor. It's still tummy the same way. Av zachar, the same is true by a male. Kevan shara beis ba'amim, once he sees two flows of ziva, shenizgak l'tumas zayin, at that point he needs 7 clean days. Afilu ra es hashlishis ba'ones, even if the third one happens because of ones, because of something outside his control, an external factor. Kevan dechaza beis ba'amim shalo ba'ones, havetami ma'isi karban. At that point, since he's already seen 2 times, not from an external factor, so he's considered tamei, and he has to bring a carbon. That's how we learn out this halacha. But the Gemara asks, Vatanya, but didn't we learn in a brayser? Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Rabbi Eliezer says, B'shlishis bod kano, so that no, on the contrary, in the third one we still do bedika. But Revi'ah zayin bod kano, so let's say he sees a fourth ziva, that's during the 7 clean days he sees something, so there already we don't check, that's considered to interrupt the 7 clean days. And to that the Gemara says, Ella be'esim kamiflagi. That issue is they're arguing over whether we darshan the word es in the pasuk. Rabbi Eliezer darish esim. Rabbi Eliezer darshans the word es, and therefore we're actually adding. It's not only v'hazav es zovo is 2 zivas. The es is actually a third ziva. So we do a bedika on the third ziva. It's only on the fourth that we don't do the bedika. For Rabbanan lo darshi esim, and the Rabbanan they do not darshan the word es. And the Gemara continues with the 2 dots we said above, onso usveiko, in a situation where it happens ba'ones, or let's say you have a situation of doubt, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Vav Amud Aleph.